Hi, and welcome to my channel. My name is Maria Lopez, and I'm a graduate student at UC San Diego studying epidemiology. The study of the population, the distribution of disease, and some other factors. For some people, I have encountered some people that think that epidemiology has to do only with infectious disease or just diseases that have to do with like contagious diseases and stuff like that. And they get surprised sometimes when I tell them that epidemiology is not only about infectious disease or transmittable diseases. It's also about there's social epidemiology, cancer epidemiology. So basically, epidemiology concerns itself with studying the distribution of disease, the occurrence, measuring disease so that we can find patterns of disease and prevent disease for the future and come up with strategies to prevent disease or find a cure. So let's talk about disease and the occurrence of disease. So our professors at UC, they're magnificent people, and they have this way of teaching epidemiology and how incidence and prevalence are related to each other. So let's imagine a hot tub or just like a bathtub. So you have the faucet and you have the bathtub at the bottom. And the faucet means the water that goes into your bathtub is like a representation of people. And disease is the water that it's on the bathtub. So people that get the disease, they come into the bathtub and the bathtub starts filling up, right? And then at the bottom of your bathtub, you have an opening that lets the water out of the bathtub. So the people, that little hole, it's mortality. So people, they can get out of your bathtub by dying or dropping from your study or just moving outside of your area of research, right? So you have people that go into your study or into your population, and we call that incidence. So people that start filling out that tub or that water are new cases of disease or an X factor that we're studying. So that would be your incidence, right? So how many people are pouring in, or how many disease cases are pouring into your bathtub while the bathtub starts getting full. That will be, let's say that we measure how many or how much fullness or how much of a full tub you have in that moment. So we could say like it's 3/4 full, it's like halfway full, or it's not full at all. So that would tell you how many people are prevalent, how many cases of disease you have in that moment. That's like a simulation prevalence. And then you have the opening, and it's how many, depending how large the opening is, you would have people coming out. And if we pretend that opening is death, then you have a mortality rate, right? There's people getting out of the tub at a certain rate that we can measure how long or how much people are dying. Let's have this relationship between incidence and prevalence and the mortality, right? So if you have the faucet open all the way up, there's gonna be water pouring into your bathtub, right? And it's gonna pour, and that bathtub is gonna fill up really quickly. If the opening for your mortality is very narrow and a lot of people don't die of that disease, then that bathtub is gonna keep growing while your incidence keeps growing as well. Or it can be steady, your incidence can be steady, and your prevalence is gonna keep going higher and higher if your mortality it's not as fast as your incidence. So an example of that would be diabetes. For example, diabetes, at the beginning of we found out about diabetes, there was a very high incidence of diabetes. So a lot of people started getting diagnosed with diabetes, and people actually died from diabetes really young, from complications. But now we know that diabetes is a relatively easy to control disease. It's very hard to control, but it's relatively easy to prevent death from diabetes. So that faucet is open at a steady rate, and it's kind of the same. The incidence rate of diabetes is kind of the same, but people are not dying. So that means that tub is gonna keep getting full and full and full, because people die very slowly of that disease. If that faucet is fully open and it comes in pouring and there's this high prevalence, it starts raising, and that opening is pretty big in comparison to other diseases, meaning that the mortality rate is very high for that disease. People die really quickly. That would be an example of the beginning of our HIV epidemic, where a lot of people started getting diagnosed with HIV, or they started contracting HIV and getting progressing into AIDS, and that incidence would be very high with the prevalence that would be steady, because that mortality was so high that a lot of people would start dying. So we lost generations of people due to HIV. And now that incidence has decreased a little bit in certain countries, and other countries is still the same. But the mortality for HIV, nowadays you can live with HIV with accurate and good treatment. So if you get good treatment, you can live your entire life with HIV, and people don't die. So that means that the incidence has been pouring in, and the prevalence increases. As the mortality decreases, then you're going to expect to see an increase in that prevalence. And we'll go over some more details about prevalence and how to calculate it. And we'll go over the formulas for incidence as well. If you find this interesting or useful, make sure to tag us, make sure to follow me on TikTok, and make sure to subscribe to this channel to get alerts for new content. And please introduce yourself in the comments and give us more input about the videos. I really would like to provide as much information as you need. And we'll see you soon, okay? Let's study together. Bye.